an advocate. So just what I wanted to go through in the time that we have together is I wanted to share with you so we're all on the same page, understanding what is menstrual health. And I'm going to define that and then talk about 4 things or pillars that we say that have to be there for improving menstrual health. And then just really quickly touch on what Days for Girls International is doing. And then 3 of our recent wins from this year from advocacy. And then 3 recent wins from our global volunteers of one's from Canada. And then I want to share the bulk of why you're here is to learn about how you can do menstrual health advocacy work in your community. And so I'm so excited to share with you our Days for Girls Advocacy Handbook. Okay, hopefully Kevin, I was telling him sometimes in the internet in Uganda comes and goes. Kevin, I think you're going to have to, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I can't advance my slides. So I'll just tell you when to advance. Thank you. So we had a backup. Let's just hope my internet holds out for my presentation. Okay, so one thing I'm excited to share with you, and many of you may have seen this, maybe not, but in the menstrual health field, we are so excited that we now have a menstrual health definition. It came out last May, actually just before Menstrual Hygiene Day. And why this is important is before in the menstrual health field, there'd been several terminologies. There'd been menstrual health, menstrual hygiene, menstrual health management, menstrual hygiene management, and all of them were just slightly different. And so the Global Menstrual Collective is made up of academics and researchers and multilaterals and people working in organizations on menstrual health. And they came together and they worked on this definition so that all the advocates and anybody working in the menstrual health field, we could all be singing the same song. We could have all the same definition. So one thing that's great is in the center, I hope it's not too small, but basically it says menstrual health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity in relation to the menstrual cycle. Kevin, yeah, I'll go ahead and tell you when to advance. I'll just leave it here. Thank you. So basically that's saying, and why we love this definition, is it recognizes that our menstrual health can affect our physical well-being, our mental well-being, and our social well-being. And then it goes on to give a definition that covers across all these 5 areas that we should have as menstrual health. We need to have access to accurate and timely information to understand what menstruation is and how do we manage it. We need to have access to hygienic facilities that have running water, that are in safe locations, that have lights, that have locks on the doors, things that might sound basic, but many people don't have. We need to have access to menstrual products that they're not only accessible, but they're affordable so that menstruators can use them. We need to have treatment and care that recognizes that some people have a lot of menstrual pain and that others have a lot of pain or discomfort associated with their menstruation. And we need to be able to address that. And then the last one, and I just love this, and I pulled it out, to have freedom to participate in all spheres of life. So that if a person is menstruating, they have the right to decide if they want to do something, but not be restricted from that because of their periods. So for example, in Nepal, where they have to go out into the chapati huts and they're not allowed in the house for 7 days, or in Malawi, where they're banned in some of the communities to a separate room and they can't come out. And so this says for menstrual health, we need to recognize it's a physical, a social, and a mental well-being, and then that we should have enough that we need to be able to participate in any way in life. So Kevin, if you can advance to the next slide. This one talks about the 4 pillars that really are fundamental in it. And you can see how the menstrual health definition came from this. So basically, to have menstrual health globally, what needs to change? Well, we need to have access to education, and we need to have improved social norms so that people talk about it, they're not embarrassed about it, and that they actually have a correct understanding about what menstrual health is, that they have access to products, and then access, as I said earlier, to the infrastructure. And then when it needs to change, and typically it's interesting in the menstrual health field, in the very beginnings and up until I would say the last few years, the focus has really been on the girl child at school. And we're trying to pull back from that and say, look, we have a whole lifetime from menarche to menopause, and we can't just focus on that young girl. There's so many phases that affect our menstruation that we need to also bring attention to. And interestingly, research is showing we are catching the girls and women and menstruators too late. We need to catch them before their first period so that they're understanding what that is. And then where does this need to change? It needs to change in our homes. It needs to change in the schools, in our workplaces. Boy, that's been highlighted in COVID, right? With some of the PPEs that some of the healthcare workers have been wearing. They talked about how they had no option to manage their menstruation, and it really caused a lot of problems because no one thought about how are they going to pull a 24-hour day when they're on their period. So we still have a long ways to go with that in public spaces and then in humanitarian settings. And so that is the 4 pillars that we come back to: education, access to products, infrastructure, and improved social norms. And so now we all, I hopefully, are on the same page on what menstrual health is and what we need to do to advance that. So if you could go to the next slide, Kevin. So in the world right now, there's 26% of the people of the entire world. Oh, wait, just one second, Kevin, for that one. That are menstruating or are of reproductive age. And of that, 500 million people do not have access to menstrual product, or they're living in period poverty. 500 million people. So for me, I'm a visual learner. So what does that mean? So that means that's the entire population of Canada plus the entire population of the United States. And then if you'll hit one more, Kevin, and the entire population, does anybody know that country? The Philippines. And we're still short by about 5 million people. So that's just to help you get a visual of how many women, girls, and menstruators wake up with their period with nothing to manage it with, or not an understanding of what it is, or no infrastructure to go and change it with in privacy and with dignity. That's a lot of people that are living in period poverty. And that's why we are wanting to be advocates for that. And one of the things I wanted to point out is, if you notice, I have Canada and the United States, which are high income countries, and then the Philippines, which is a low income country, because periods don't know boundaries. They don't know countries. They don't stop for pandemics. And so period poverty is happening everywhere. As I said at the beginning, it happened at my roommate at college. It is not something that's just happening here in sub-Saharan Africa. And this is why we need to address it globally. Kevin, if you can advance to the next slide. Thank you. So at Days for Girls, our mission is to turn periods into pathways. And one of the things that we really work strongly on is to bring accurate information and education to both the men and women so that everyone has a complete understanding of what is menstruation. One thing you might find interesting, in Uganda, some of the Afghan refugees were the evacuees. They're not refugees. The evacuees came to Uganda. And so I was able to go in with some of our team here to help bring them Days for Girls washable pads. And these are people who are super educated. Like, they were translators. They were country directors for international NGOs. And so I was thinking, this is going to be a different kind of conversation than I'm used to having in the villages. And what I found interesting is, before we started, the translator said, wait. I want to ask these women what they think of menstruation. What's their understanding, their perception? And do you know, every one of them said it's dirty, it's shameful, it's embarrassing. And by the end, we had a conversation that helped them see, oh, this is not embarrassing. This is not shameful. It's not dirty. It's natural. And so I thought, even some of them had PhDs and masters, and still they didn't have the accurate information because of their culture. In fact, some of them were asking, we were told we shouldn't take a shower for 7 days. We were told we couldn't drink cold drinks. I don't think that's true, is it? And that just shows you how powerful those social norms are. And that's what we're working at Days for Girls, to help bring accurate information, to help people understand the correct you know, the correct way to manage menstruation and not have harmful cultural practices. And then what we do is we also advocate to have supportive policy environments so that we can see long-lasting change. And we do this two ways: through our volunteers, and then through our social entrepreneurs who also are out advocating in their countries, just like you are in Canada. And then we bring product, which is a washable pad, and we have our volunteers that make those, and then they take them to humanitarian settings or those areas that are the last mile that we can't get to. And then we have our social entrepreneurs who are also making and manufacturing our washable pads, and then they get those to the women in their communities. They sell them, and so they're not only making an income, but they're also seen as champions in their community, because it's a lot easier to trust someone on such a private and sensitive topic when you know them and they're from your community, they speak your language, than a stranger coming in. And so by having all of these programs in place, we are turning periods into pathways. Kevin, can you go to the next slide? So at Days for Girls for Advocacy, as I just touched on, what are we working on? We're working to see policy and legislation, because we need environments that support the menstruators, and we need to see long-lasting change, systemic change, and that's what we really hope for. We also, as I mentioned, through our social entrepreneurs and through our volunteers, we need local leadership. Everyone understands in their own communities the social norms, what's happening, and they are the best drivers for change and the best advocates. We also look to work on coalitions and to build partnerships so that we can share with the greater world what is happening, what is the reality on the ground. And that's in the humanitarian sectors, that, also with the gender-based violence, WASH sectors. We can share what's happening in those in relation to menstrual health. And then we really want to contribute to the menstrual health field and building it up by getting accurate research done and sharing what we are seeing, and being a thought leader in contributing to what we see in the menstrual health field. Kevin, can you go to the next one? So I just wanted to share with you a couple of the wins that we've had in 2021 that we're really proud of. And this has all come just simply from advocacy work. And so in South Africa, one of the things that we have really, really worked hard on is to have standards in place. And so what a standard is every country has the Bureau of Standards, where a product has to be tested before it can get a seal of approval, right? To say it's safe, it's quality, and it does what it says. And so what's been a little bit sad in sub-Saharan Africa and other countries is people know that products for menstruation are needed, and that's a lot of money you can make. So people have often come in and made products that are not quality, they cause infections, and we don't want to do that. We want to ensure that if a product is going to a menstruator, that they can have a guarantee that it's safe at the time of the sale. And so we worked with the Bureau of Standards and said, look, we need to make sure there's a standard. And so what that is anybody who manufactures a washable pad has to take it in, and it's tested for microbiological contamination, it's tested for absorbency, all of these things. And then if it passes, then it's given a seal of approval so that the consumer knows it's safe. And that way we ensure that that's a barrier removed for menstruators. We also worked with the South African government to form a menstrual health coalition. And this was really exciting because there's lots of people working in menstrual health, but there was no communication. And when we come together, like Change the Flow and Days for Girls Canada, and we link arms, we can get a lot more publicity and help a lot more people. And so that's why we wanted to form that. And our greatest accomplishment this year, well, they're all exciting, but we have partnered with the First Lady of Malawi to help reach girls in school and in our community through menstrual equity. And the First Lady's in the middle, and then the one next to her, her name is Eunice. And Eunice Eunice grew up with menstrual inequality, and her story is so sad. I'm so sorry. And her story is so sad But she was able to take what happened to her. She was raped, she was beaten, all because of her period. And then she said, I do not want anyone else to suffer like I have suffered. She dropped out of school, and she ended up having opportunities open up, and she owns her own sewing manufacturing, making our Days for Girls washable pads. And now she advocates before the First Lady. And it's amazing to think that someone who dropped out of school because of her period is now a menstrual health champion in her country, helping thousands of girls. And it's just so exciting to see that. And then globally, we've been able to be thought leaders and host many international events. And then we, as Julia said, we sit on the Advocacy Task Committee for the Global Menstrual Collective. And that's just a bunch of researchers and all kinds of people that come together to work to help make sure we amplify what's happening globally in the menstrual health field. And then our exciting thing, why we're here tonight, is to talk about the Days for Girls Advocacy Handbook. And we worked on that for about a year, and I'm so excited to introduce it to you tonight. So can you advance to the next one, Kevin? Okay, so I wanted to share some really exciting highlights, just 3 from volunteers just like you, who are, you might be wondering, can I do anything? Does my voice matter? Well, it does. If you'll go to the next one, I want to share with you 3 quick examples of volunteers who have made a difference. Jillian Johnston, the country advocacy coordinator for Days for Girls Canada, is a great example. Jillian, you'll see in a minute, you'll understand a menstrual health landscape. We ask all of our volunteers to start out with that. And she said, that's basically understanding what's happening in your community. And she was like, I need to figure out Canada, but I want to get this right. But Canada is it's a provincial issue. And so it's really hard to figure out what's happening, right, from province to province. And so she put together an advocacy advisory panel. And from that, she felt like she had a match from each province and each territory. But even at that, trying to figure out what was happening with menstrual health was overwhelming. And so then the Days for Girls Canada got a grant, and they were able to get hooked up with Dr. Sylvia McLean from, I want to make sure I say this right, from Fan Shui College in London, Ontario. And she is a professor of health systems. And she said, you know what? I want to take this on with other professors and students and researchers. And they are doing a comprehensive look of all of Canada and what is happening with the menstrual health lens. And their idea will be to publish this, and that will be an incredible resource for Canada to know province to province what is happening. And that came from just Jillian asking a few questions. And it's not like, I just think it's amazing, one person, and now it's going to benefit all of Canada. So thank you, Jillian. And then the next one, I just think this is so exciting. This one just is happening right now. Heather Knox is in the UK, and she is an advocate like all of us, but she just was able, like how Jillian has teamed up with Kevin, she teamed up with another volunteer from iRise, another menstrual health organization in the UK. And they said, you know what? In our healthcare system, when we go to the doctor, they don't ask us about menstruation. There's no information about it. And then they started gathering stories of people who had gone to the doctor and how they were ignored for their menstruation, or they didn't understand what it was. And so right now, they have put together a website, and it's going to go live, I think, next week, where I want to get it right. They're campaigning for better healthcare for people who menstruate. So basically, they are asking in the UK, and they created these documents, that one of them is a patient empowerment document. And that is information about menstruation. So when they go there, they can get that information to better understand things related to their periods. And then they also have a menstrual health questionnaire specific to just menstruation questions. So when they go, they can tick boxes, because I know I have personally never had questions specific about menstruation, just menstruation. And so that's one of the things they're advocating for, and hoping it can go all across the UK, which is amazing. Then the last example are some university students from the United States at Penn State. And one of the things they did is they said, what's happening on our college campus? Like, do people have what they need? Are there any barriers? So they just put together this survey and they sent it out. I think it was on WhatsApp. They got 325 answers. And of those 325, do you know what they found was the problem at their campus? Garbage bins. So many people said, I'm in the bathroom and there is nowhere to dispose of my soiled menstrual product. They either had to walk out of the bin, or one of them, the restroom, the janitor had put it out in the hallway. And so they're like, okay, we can take this on. So they took this on, and it took a year. But guess what? At Penn State now, every bathroom stall has a garbage can. And they also found out that some people were struggling with period poverty. So they got permission to have one bathroom on the university be period product free. And so at the end of the year, they found a note from someone, that's one of the students, that said, if this had not been here, I would have had nothing to manage my period because my family had some health issues and there wasn't enough money. And so it made a difference for many, but especially that student. Okay, Kevin, do you want to go to the next slide? So our Days for Girls Advocacy Handbook. I feel like I need a drum roll because you're the first ones that are really getting a formal introduction to this. Okay, if you can go to the next one. I'm going to just walk you kind of at a high level of what it is, why it was created, and what you can find in there. And we've really, really, really tried to make it user friendly. And we've used our pictures from all of our work. These girls right here jumping for joy, those are some of the girls in Malawi on the work that we're doing there. So why was this created? Well, it was created because we were having so many people ask, what can we do we want to be involved, but we don't know where to start. And we're a global organization, so it's really, really hard to say, well, in Canada, there's this, and in the United States, there's this, and then in Australia, like there's so many different things. And so we thought, okay, we want to give 4 pathways that no matter where you live, you can find something that will work in your community. So that's what happened. And then we were like, but what is interesting? We don't want to tell someone. So we put out surveys to people all in high income countries, in the global north, global south. And what came back, it basically fell into these 4 categories that we'll go over. So basically this is built because of feedback from volunteers. And we wanted to, as you dive into it, we wanted everyone to feel comfortable and informed. So as they go and advocate, they feel like they understand what's happening. And we also wanted to be able to give really practical guidance for how do you plan an activity? How do you do it? How do you report it? Because sometimes it can be, there's more to it than you might first think. And then we felt it was really important to give real life examples and lessons from work that people have done, from both people within Days for Girls, but other volunteers. And then finally, we thought we really want this to spark ideas and inspire action. And so that's how it came about. Okay, do you want to go to the next one? So what will you find in this book? The very first thing you'll come to is a crash course on Menstrual Health 101. And it will just walk you through the terminology. It'll give you, there's lots of links in there that can take you to other resources. The second thing you'll learn, Days for Girls Theory of Change, which is really like our North Star. And for our organization, it guides our work to have the impact that we hope is to remove the barriers and limitations, so women and girls and menstruators can have livelihoods and outcomes and live healthy lives. And then there's our advocacy strategy, and then it shows how you play a role in that. And then the next thing is mapping your menstrual health landscape that I'm going to come back to. And then it really goes into detail into these 4 action pathways that I'll go into detail. And then intermixed in between there, interspersed, is tips and case studies and mini activities that will help you along your way and I think really get you excited. Okay, next slide. Thank you, Kevin, for doing this. So your menstrual health landscape, this is the first place. If you're going to do some volunteer advocacy work, this is where you want to start. Okay, next one. So what is that? What is a menstrual health landscape? Well, really, It's just you understanding what's happening in your community and or your country. And you really want to look at it through these three lenses, these three main dimensions. So from a policies perspective, what is happening in Canada with policy? Are things held at the provincial level, or is it the national level? What's happening in your community? Who's holding it? Who holds it in your country? Um, what's happening in the school districts with that? What are the policies? The social perception and stigma is the next one. So how is it perceived in your community by people there? Are there similarities or differences in how it exists? How various communities are perceiving it versus like in the rural to the urban, the elderly to the youth? And then products, what is accessible, and how affordable is it? Can people in the urban, rural, or wherever you're at afford it? And so these are just a couple of the basic questions. And so this menstrual health landscape helps you walk through, and you'll be surprised at what you learn. Like I will tell you, one of our advocates in California was doing it, and she found out, oh my gosh, there's a bill right now, AB 367 or something, and it was up for vote. And it basically was in California saying, provide menstrual products in universities and public places and schools for free. And so she got a hold of us, and then what we found has worked really well is we can get a calling tree. And so we did a calling tree, and we reached out to all of our volunteers in that area in California and said, please vote, message, text, send it to your legislator. And you guys, it passed. And so now in California, there's these menstrual products. And she would have never known that had she not done this menstrual health landscape. So you'll find things that you may not even know. Okay, next slide. And then we have some resources to help you with that. This is taken from our handbook, but basically these red are hyperlinks that you can click on, but we've actually have a menstrual health landscape library. And so we have many volunteers who are starting to get involved. So you can click and see, oh, is there one in my community? If there is, or if there isn't, you'll know where to go. And then I would recommend you reach out to Jillian, and she can help you plan this. And then you can start creating your own map, either add to that one or do a different one. And then when you complete it, this really will guide you, and you'll see gaps or opportunities on how you can really best help your community. So next slide. So now we're going to jump into the 4 pathways that you can do it. And I just want to stress that everybody has a different pathway to advocacy, and that's fine. And some it might just be having a conversation, and that's enough. But others, it might be you're really going to get out there and work with your policymakers. That's fine too. Just start where you're at, but start. Okay, so let's break these down. If you can go to the next slide. So the first one is education, information, and communication. This is one of the ways that you can advocate. Correct information and education communicated clear. Oh, yeah, just stay on that page for a minute, Kevin, if you don't mind. If you communicate that clearly, that will be so much advocacy work. And one of the things is we really need to work to change the stigma and the taboo. We still, like, I remember as a young girl when I would go with my mom to get my menstrual products, I would hide it in the shopping cart, put the bread over it, put the milk in front of it. I was mortified if we saw someone and there it was. But why? Why are we that way? Like, let's start changing that now. Have conversations with your brothers, your husbands, your nephews, your nieces, whoever. Let's make it more where it's not uncomfortable. And I can tell you it works. My daughter, because obviously of the line of work I do, we talk about periods a lot at our house. And just so you know, I have 3 daughters, and my husband is the only man in the house. And so I was actually gone when my youngest daughter had her period, and she was on the airplane with my husband flying. And she goes, oh, Dad, I started my period. He's like, oh, okay, what do we do? She's like, oh, they had this whole conversation, and she wasn't embarrassed at all. And I thought, wow, that is so great. And then she asked the flight attendant to give her something. And I'm like, were you embarrassed? She's like, no, why would I be embarrassed? And I'm like, Isn't that what we need? We need people to be like, well, why would I be embarrassed? It's something natural. Instead of feeling that, oftentimes with menstruation, it's that shameful secret. We got to keep it a secret. We got to hide it. And I think we can change that by just talking about it. So another thing is we want to have one of the things that you will find in the advocacy book is resources for staying informed about the latest in menstrual health. And just so you're aware, I'm going to put a little plug in. Days for Girls International, when you sign up to get the Advocacy Handbook, if you want, you check a box, then you can get we're going to start a newsletter in January. But 3 times a year, we do trainings where anybody can come, and it's on Zoom, and we just offer some tangible things that you can do in your community if you want, and then you can meet other volunteers and get ideas. And so the next one is on December 7th. So if you want to come, follow up with Jillian and she can get you the information. But staying informed is a really good way to be an advocate. Interpersonal communication. This is an interesting one. A lot of people want to advocate, but they're like, how do I start talking about periods? And especially in a professional setting. And so there's actually some examples of how you can do that, but really you just start. And it's kind of like sometimes if you've ever told someone you fake it till you make it, you act like you're comfortable talking about periods, and soon you will be comfortable talking about them. Because I think if you're comfortable, it will help put other people at ease. But if you're advocating and you're squirming and you're uncomfortable, then they're uncomfortable too. So fake it. Mass communication. I think it's really important in this day and age to leverage your social media and be strategic about it. In the handbook, we have a big section for international holidays. And it's always great if you can link up with one of those, like International Day of the Girl, International Day of the Woman, Menstrual Hygiene Day. They just had World Toilet Day. There's all kind of things where you can just on your social media say something very easy. We've got examples on how you can do that, but just those are really basic ways to raise awareness. And I want to just share something really quick. When I was just in Malawi, we were holding a big meeting with, we had the heads of government, local and national. We had head religious leaders, tribal leaders, and we had the head of an evangelical church there. And we were telling him how menstruation is a barrier and girls drop out of school. And you guys, this man, he raised his hand and he was like, wait, what? He goes, menstruation is a barrier? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, how have I missed this? I have a wife, I have kids. And it was really, really interesting that I thought we need more education. We need more communication. And so we can't assume people understand this. And that's why we got to talk about it. Okay, next. So that's the first pathway. Okay, if you can go to the next one. The second one is a needs assessment and making the case. So this doesn't happen in every place, but this would be like at the Days for Girls Penn State that I told you about. They wanted to know what is happening on my campus. So this was a very specific one. And so they conducted a needs assessment to find out. We walk you through in this chapter, how do you do a focus group? How do you do surveys or interviews, but also make sure it's ethical? And so, we want to respect people's privacy. We want to be sensitive to them. And so we talk about those ethical issues. And then how do you complete that assessment? Like we would, if you're doing one, we would want you to share it with us so we can give you feedback. But this is a great way if you want to find out what's happening in your particular area, or if you are in a group, you can do that and find out anonymously what are the needs people are having. And like Penn State found out, the garbage cans were a big issue. So that's the second way. Okay, if you want to go to the next one. And this one is one that a lot of people start out the most excited about. And this is the product drives and fundraisers. And I'll tell you, I'm really, really excited about this chapter because sometimes I've seen this is a great one-off activity that often our volunteers haven't realized they could use this to catapult to more attention. So this one really walks you through, do you want to do a drive or do you want to do a fundraiser? And how do you do it? How do you plan for it? How do you design it? And then the key is, how do you publicize and get the word? Because the more attention you can get around that, then the more you're advocating, you're bringing awareness to this issue. And then how are you going to implement it? And then the follow-up. Don't forget thank yous. Like how are you going to write a newspaper article about what you just did? And I think the key part here is, how do you leverage that fundraiser, that drive, to get an advocacy goal? So maybe you're in a community where it's really not talked about. Like I'm thinking in Australia, this is really interesting. In Australia, they don't have tax on menstrual products. They're actually in so many ways pretty menstrual. They have menstrual equity, but they do not talk about it. Someone told us that they wanted to do their graduate work on menstrual inequality, and her committee wouldn't let her do it. They're like, oh, we can't do that. That's like, we don't talk about that. And so while on one sense, they've got a lot of menstrual equity, on another, they're still not talking about it. There's a lot of secret shrouded in it. And so they could do a fundraisers to leverage, to talk about it. So you really want to look at not just the product, or the drive or the fundraiser, but what from that do you want? Do you want to get a newspaper article? Do you want to get on the news? Do you want to have a legislator person come? Do you want, what do you want, so that can then lead to some other changes as well? Okay, and our last one, Kevin, if you'll go, is the last pathway is your policy and legislation. And so this section is, how do you engage in your civic action that can help advance menstrual policy in your area? And this one is really, really specific and hard to direct people, because what could be happening in your community may be different in another community. So that's why your menstrual health landscape is really important to do. So if people in the United States, and I have to tell you this, in the United States, this section is quite lengthy because we had volunteers help write it. We walk them through the whole process. But Kevin, if you'll go to the next slide, you're going to see that for Canada, the UK, and Australia, we still need some work. And so if any of you are interested in, and policy and how it works in Canada, then please volunteer. We would love to have your help to build that section out in Canada right now, because this is a living document. And so when you get it, you'll have a link, and you can also download it. But for the link, we are always going to keep this refreshed and up to date, and be putting things in, changing things as the menstrual health field is growing. But one of the things we do have and would love is to build out our Canada, Australia, and UK more. Not being a citizen there, I barely understand the United States, to be honest, but I don't know other countries. And so again, if any of you would love to help with that, we would love to have your help. But so that's just to say, the handbook is a living document. It's going to be continually updated and changed to meet what's happening. But it will be a really great resource for you. Okay, if you want to go to the next slide, Kevin. So how do you access this great handbook? What you do is you go to the Days for Girls website, and at the top, there's all these tabs. And under the one that says what we do, you click on advocacy, policy and advocacy. And then you'll click on that, and that'll take you to another one, and you scroll down, and there's like 3 options, and you'll click join the movement, and then it'll take you there to where the handbook is. Then you just put your name, your email, and it'll send you a link, and it's yours. And you can just spend time reading in it. I promise it's not boring, or I don't think it is, maybe, but we've had a lot of positive feedback. We tried to make it really digestible. So, because sometimes I feel like you can read things and it's like, what did I just read? It was so, I don't want to say academic, because I love academics, but you know what I mean. So we tried to just make it user-friendly, lots of examples, beautiful pictures, and hopefully inspiring, so that you will go out and get involved in your community. Okay, next slide, I think. Yeah, I think that's it. So I think if you want, you can stop sharing the screen, And I'm just going to go ahead, and I just again wanted to thank Kevin and Jillian for organizing this. And I wanted to thank each of you, because I know you have many things going on in your life, you're all busy, but that you would take time to dial in today, or to link into this Zoom call to learn about how you can help advance menstrual equity in your community is really amazing. So thank you so much for being here. And even if the only thing you do is you go and have a conversation with someone, then you've been an advocate and you've helped move that needle just a little bit, and that's enough. So I'll take any questions if anybody has any. And then other than that, then I'll turn it back over to Kevin and Jillian.
Thank you, Diana. I have one question that came in. If you're able to answer it now, was a practical one. Are the slides going to be available to be shared? Yeah, okay. And so would that be something we would coordinate through Jillian, perhaps?
Yeah, through Jillian. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll answer it in the chat, but somebody had asked that. So get a hold of Jillian for the slides, and the event itself will be rebroadcast on next Monday at 7 p.m. There's a link to register for that in the chat, and we'll put that in the follow-up email, and we'll make the event available on demand as well. So if anybody has any other questions, and if just put them in the chat, raise your virtual hand. And if not, I think Jill has some closing words. If we'll leave another minute for some space.
Okay. I just see a question. Can I just read it? It says, looking to the importance of reducing colonialist perspectives of volunteerism, yep, also white saviorism, how do you address this in your program? Oh, it's such a good question. I'm seeing a lot of photos of those in developing countries being used in your social media channels and your print materials. To encourage menstrual health advocacy in developed countries like Canada, are you hoping to gear your materials to be more inclusive? Oh, thank you very much. It's two really great questions. So I think you're right. I want to point out, both my husband and I do development work. And so, we have to be really careful that we respect the communities that we serve in. That's why we really, really are trying to have local leaders lead everything so that we don't come in and take over. So how do we address that at Days for Girls? What we're trying to do is we have what's called our impact zones. And so there are three colors: red, blue, and orange. And basically, where there's countries where we have social enterprises who are the locally led women and men who are manufacturing our washable pads, and they're doing our menstrual health education, if when they're in countries thriving, then we ask our volunteers from the higher income countries to please not go there, because they are actually hurting the work when they come in, well-intended, but they're taking away service from the local people. I always think of the Toms shoes. You remember how they were so well-intended? You buy a pair of Toms and we're going to donate one, and then they put all the local shoemakers out of business. It was a terrible model. It meant well, but they hurt everybody. And so what we do then is our volunteers, then we do two things. We ask them to go to other countries where they can seed the market, or we have humanitarian projects. Like right now, we just did one in Chad in the refugee camps, and many of our volunteers made the kits, and then they were sent over to Chad to 13 refugee camps. And then the locals, they were, some of the organizations were trained on our education, and then they went and taught it. And so I think we have to be super careful in not looking like white saviors or colonialism, and respect that we have to look for local leadership. And I don't have the answer to that. I mean, I see it in all kinds of organizations, but we're really aware of it in our organization and really working to respect local leadership and that things are led on the ground. And that's why we created this handbook. Is there's problems in Canada, there's problems in Australia, in America, like the United States, are everywhere. We don't need to go across to other countries. We can start in our own backyard. And that's why we have the handbook. And then you said you're seeing a lot of photos of those in developing countries. And I would say that that has probably come, I know in our handbook, because I put it together and all of my, I've been doing a lot over here. So that's a good note. I will actually take that back. And I do think we need to be more maybe representative in our social media posts, that we are a global organization. And so thank you for that feedback. I really appreciate that. Is there any other questions?
Does that look like it, Diana?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Well, everyone, wasn't that wonderful? As you can see, Diana is herself a champion in our global MH community. It is just a privilege to work with her. I work with her guidance and direction on a very regular basis, and I never tire of her enthusiastic support for this cause, which is so important to all of us. Thank you, Diana, from Changing the Flow, from Days for Girls Canada, and from all our participants today. You have inspired us not only with your wealth of experience and the excellent new handbook that you have shared with us, but also with your determination to advance menstrual equity and your commitment to help us share the platform here in Canada. Thank you so very, very much. And I should say, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the concept of sharing the platform came from Diana in my very first conversation with her, and it certainly resonates with all of us here today. So thanks again. Thanks for being here. We sure appreciate everything you do for all of us. And here's a reminder about today's event. Kevin has mentioned the event will be rebroadcast next Monday, December the 6th at 7 p.m. And also, please watch for an email about details for its availability on demand. In case you didn't know, today is Giving Tuesday. You'll find a link, or maybe you've found it already, on the event page. And Kevin has also added the link to the chat. Some of the MH organizations here today who are sharing the platform with us are hoping for Giving Tuesday donations, just as we are at Days for Girls Canada. Please pass the word and do what you can to support the organizations that are working so hard to advance menstrual equity here in Canada. I'd like to thank Julia. She is the greatest communications officer ever. She's always ready to do whatever she can for Days for Girls Canada and for menstrual equity. And finally, I'd like to thank Kevin, my friend, my colleague, and my co-conspirator. He is the technical brains behind our collaborations, and he is incredibly generous with his time and expertise, and extremely sincere in his efforts. Thank you all participants, for being with us today. We'll see you in January 18th, for our next event. Let's work together to make 2022 a record year for menstrual equity in Canada.
Surfing the wave, surfing Hi, my name is Zeba and I'm from Free Periods Canada. I'm inviting you to join our platform Charms, which connects people that are interested in learning more about menstrual health. Here you will find networking and volunteer opportunities. You can filter by location, expertise, and find people to collaborate with. You can also find grant and funding opportunities. Join our growing network to make period care more accessible.